Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. So in this video, I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into the DxO Nik Collection 8 and show you some of the things that we can do with it, and also get really into how it integrates with Photoshop and how well it works with creating new layers. What I have been able to do with DxO is negotiate with them a discount for you guys, which will run for Father's Day for the next 4 or 5 days. It's June 2025, which is a discount 20%. I think it's very generous of them. After that, it will be 15% available discount. The links are down below that runs to the end of the year. But you don't have to buy it. There's also a free trial that you can do, which runs for 30 days. You can have a play with that. But what I wanted to show you, because I really do like Silver Efex, and I've been playing with some of the other functions that are available within the Nik collection, and I'm going to show you in this video how they work. Here we go, a picture of Buckingham Palace. This runs off from my previous video where we did a day to night. We've done a Silver Efex conversion, and in this video I'll show you how that's done. So yeah, take a look at the Nik collection, have a look at their site. As I say, there is a free trial available, and also there is different options. Perhaps join me here with the Nik Collection 8. So anyway, if you enjoy the video, click like. I have put the 4 images down below. You're welcome to download those and follow along. If you do obviously purchase Nik Collection, you can have a play with those images as well. If you enjoy what I'm doing here on YouTube and want to follow me as we go forward, please subscribe and take a look at my older videos running back. I've covered so many different elements of photography over the last couple of years. And if you've got any comments or questions or tips, feel free to drop those down below. I always like to read those, and I do my best to answer all of them. So, okay, let's get started. So I've got 4 images here in Lightroom. They're images that I've processed before. We've got Stratford upon Avon. We've got obviously Tower Bridge, and we've got a nice little shot of the Serena and Lily shop in Westport, Connecticut. And one of my most recent images here, Buckingham Palace day to night. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little look at Nik Collection, a little bit more detail, and we're going to go through and maybe do 4 examples here using these images. So let's start off with bringing them all into Nik Collection. Now, there are many ways you can do that. You can just right click once you've installed your Nik Collection as a plugin into Lightroom. Then you have the options here in Lightroom to go straight to them if you want to. There's a better way, and really to take the power of Nik Collection and make it work for you, you really need to move it into Photoshop. So don't panic. It's quite straightforward. What we're going to do is we're just going to highlight these 4 images. So the first one's highlighted down. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just click the last one so that we have all 4 images selected. I'm going to right click on any one of the images here. I'm going to go to editing, and I'm just going to go straight up to editing Adobe Photoshop 2025 at the top there. And I'm just going to say, yep, I want all of the Lightroom adjustments that are currently included. And then we're just going to slide over into Photoshop. Here we are. Now in Photoshop, the plugins load in the plugin section, and as you can see, Nik Collection, there they all are. Now you can open those and you can go into the preferences. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll do some later videos where we'll really focus on some of the detail, but for now you can select your plugins and it will place them for you, as you can see here down the side. So we have the Visa, which is very much about color control and you know, basic settings and moving, a bit like Lightroom in some ways. You've got my absolute favorite, which is Silver Efex, and this is Nik Collection Silver Efex 8, which is really quite impressive. We'll have a play with that. We've also got some little add-ons that they give you. You've got a sharpener output. You've got a pre-sharpener function, and we'll show you how these work. You've got an HDR effect. Well, I'm not going to do that here because I've got the images that I want, but you can use multiple images to bring together HDR, much as you can in Lightroom and in Photoshop. But they all give you a slightly different look, and it's quite interesting. You've got Dfine, which is a noise correction. Now, most of these images I've got here, I've already noise corrected in Lightroom when I did the images originally. So we'll have a quick look at it, but I'm not going to get too involved in Dfine. Then we have color effects, which again allows you to manipulate the colors. An awful lot of presets available in these as well to give you different effects. And the last one I've got here is analog effects, and that really allows you to make images look like particularly the old days of film and grain and different types of color and even wet plates. You can go back to really old style cameras and you can create some interesting effects. So let's kick off with the Stratford upon Avon image, and what we're going to do is look at Silver Efex, how we can affect this image with Silver Efex. So I'm just going to go to the Silver Efex, which is now, as you can see, loaded on the side here. I'm just going to click on it, and it gives me the little Silver Efex panel here. It tells you a little bit about what you've been doing in the past. You can use the last edit if you want to, so it will take you straight to it, and we can look at filters. So presets, filters, last edit, they're all available to you as you go in. You can click on any of these. I tend to just go with none of them switched on, go in and start afresh, but you can go back to presets that you did before. So I'm just going to click open, and it's going to open the module there, and it's been effectively updated to run certainly Apple Silicon, and it's also got some new instructions to run with the modern Intel and AMD processors as well. So it's very quick. It's very quick to do everything, which is also very nice. Now what you've got here, the basic layout on the left, you've got your presets. In here you've got your filters, so I can open and close these. You've got your different filters, and we'll go through a few of these as well. You've got your last edits, history, and the original image also can be shown down in the bottom. You can make this bigger or smaller by sliding it over. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this image in presets. So we've got all Nik is highlighted. So everything that's in here is now available to us on the left hand side. We can create custom presets. We can create our own name set of presets. So I've done my own here, Jamie. So all the ones I really like, I've put in on the left here. And I can literally just click on any one of these, and you'll see that you get a slider to go from the original to the one that you've selected here. It's simple as that. And then you still have all the functionality on the right hand side to be able to change any of those elements. But let me stick with all Nik here, and we can go down through here and we can look at what do we fancy. Now I quite like high structure smooth, so I'm going to click on that, and you can see there we go. That's without, that's with. Gives you quite a change. Just a simple click on a preset. You don't need to get into too much detail. You can just go say, yeah, I'm happy with that. But of course, what you now have on the right hand side is all the adjustments for the new preset that you've got here. You can also, if I click on filters, we can also add in a number of additional elements if we want to. So these are my favorites. I've got a star against them. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be used, because you can see at the moment there's a plus next to each one and a minus next to that one. So that means that the basic adjustments are included over here, and that's what we've got at the moment. It's just the basics over here. You can see basic adjustments just there. If I turn that off, we won't have those adjustments applied, so there's no change with that particular preset. So that's the preset we've got. I'd like a bit of toning, so I'm just going to say positive on that, and it will add toning in on the right hand side, you saw there. And clear view can be quite useful as well, and I'm also going to put in selective tones. So we've got those all on the right hand side. So when you click the filter to open them, they start in a neutral position, and then you can go from where you want to go. So that we've got the preset, we've got these additional filters. So there's the before, there's the after. So I'm just going to move this over to the right hand side here, sorry, the left hand side here, just so I can see the whole image. And then we're just going to go through and make some minor adjustments here. So toning, I always enjoy playing with toning, and selenium is one of my favorite colors there. It gives quite a grey blue look, so I can click on that, and that's now applied it. So there you go, there's the before, there's the after, so you can see the difference straight away. You can also change the color of the paper effectively. If you were producing the image onto film paper, and the color, the original color of the film paper could come through. And you can see that here. You can pick the color of the paper. At the moment it's neutral in the center, but let's say we wanted to have a more blue, almost heading towards magenta paper in the background. We could move the paper hue to there, and then we could increase the amount of paper toning to show that that was the original color of the paper below. I'm being dramatic here with these colors, as you can see, but you can apply a little bit of that just to give it an ever so slight tone. And that was very common in the old days when they actually developed black and white onto different paper types and different colors of paper. It gave the image different hues, as much as the fact that the chemicals could also be used to create different tones within the black and white. And we'll also look at this with the Analog Pro element of Nik Collection to look at color of the film sort of technology that used to be. But it gives us so much flexibility, and this is what I really enjoy about this. But the real key is once you think you've got to somewhere that you quite like, and I'm quite liking this, I'm just going to go into clear view and just increase the intensity of the clear view. Just gives you a little bit more. Maybe there's a bit too much contrast up here, so I'm just going to go up into the basic adjustments. Here they are, and you've got contrast, you've got brightness, you've got all your separate elements here. So I'm just going to reduce the amplify the black. So you can see it's quite dark up there. So I'm just going to reduce that back just a little bit. And then maybe just amplify the whites just a little tiny bit, not too much, and bring the overall contrast down just a little bit there. And maybe the darkness here, the shadows, I could open the shadows up a little bit, bring down the midtones, bring down the highlights just a little bit. And that's sort of taken away that darkness. So that's where we started, which was pretty good when it started off, to be fair, but now we've got something quite special. So I'm happy with that. But the real trick of the new Nik Collection 8, when you run it in Photoshop, is that down here in the bottom right corner, you could just apply it and it will just send the image back into Photoshop. But what you can do is click send as layer, and I've just clicked that there and it sent a layer to Photoshop. Okay, so if I go back into Photoshop, there's a new layer that's been created over here. Okay, you can't do anything with it because you're still running the Nik Collection app in the background, but we'll go back into the Silver Efex. There we are. So we sent that one over into Photoshop. So you might think, well, perhaps whilst I'm here, let me have a look at some different sort of ways of doing this image. So I can go back into the presets up the top here, open those presets up. Now, the one we used was high structure smooth, okay? But let's say we wanted to go for something a little bit different. So what about full dynamic? There we go, full dynamic smooth. And maybe we want to make this image, so there's the original, there's the full dynamic. Maybe we want to make the image more misty, more sort of magical. So we're in this full dynamic smooth. We'll go back into the filters, and we can add clear view to this one as well. Okay, we'll do that. We'll add toning to this one as well, and we'll also add selective tones. And in the selective tones, we can look at reducing those highlights a little bit, boosting the midtones maybe just a little bit, and opening up the shadows maybe just a little bit. I mean, you're so powerful. What you can do here is you have to be quite gentle with the controls just to find out where it looks okay. I'm just gonna a little bit -3 on the blacks there. The clear view, just a little bit of clear view, just a tiny amount, just to make it sort of sparkle there with the detail. And then also with the toning, maybe we'll go for something a little bit warmer, so we can come down and just find something that's a little bit warmer. Here we go, this one here, the coffee on 13. So there's the before, there's the after. We've got that sort of effect going on. We can also reduce the structure slightly, which will increase the sort of mistiness of the image. And the structure adjustments, you can actually deal with all of the highlights, midtones, shadows, the fine structure detail. Put a little bit of fine structure detail in there, and I can back off the detail in the shadows. You see how that goes from sort of quite harsh here to very soft in the way it looks. And you also have the soft contrast slider as well, so we can bring that. If I move that over to the left, the image gets much brighter, but of course you can reduce the brightness to compensate, so you get quite a soft contrast effect if you do that. If I bring that back up, it will make it darker. So you can just move those around to find an area that you're happy with. And so I can always move that slider across and just look. You can also, rather than having the slider, you can actually just do a compare. So you can have them like one above the other, and you can see it as you're making the adjustments as you go. I quite like this this slider effect in here. So I'm sort of happy with that. I'm just going to say send layer over to Photoshop, and then we can either apply it, which will make another layer, or I just say go cancel for now. I've done what I wanted to do. It's just going to process all those images that we were just dealing with back into Photoshop, and you can see the layers are being created over the right hand side, and it's just doing that at the moment, and it will end up with those two layers. There we go. They're the two layers. Let me just get rid of that. So there's the two layers. If I turn top layer on, that was the softer one that we used, and if I turn the one below on, that was the one where I used the selenium toning. Okay, but the cool thing is now we've got them as layers in Photoshop, we're able to do direct comparisons. So there's the original image, there's this image, and then there's the new one on the top. Now I quite like this one here, really do quite like this one here. So I'm just going to ignore the middle one, so I'll switch the middle one off. But what I want to do is, perhaps rather than just having it as black and white, maybe I want to bring a bit of the color in from the original image, right? So I could do that either by applying a layer mask and then going through and selectively changing things. And I've got a couple of recent videos that take you through that sort of layer management. Have a look at those if you're not completely confident with how to use layers and layer masks. I'm not going to use a layer mask here, keeping it relatively simple. I'm going to go into the blending mode here. You can see it's in normal, and next to it you have an occupancy, and I'm just going to go into that occupancy slider, and I'm going to bring that down. And what that will do is it will show the image that's currently lit, the background image at the moment, through the top image. So if I bring that occupancy up, we can get a balance between the two. Let's go somewhere around here. So we've got that wonderful black and white look with the contrast that we played with, and I'm gonna go around about there. So without, you've got quite strong color. With, you've got a sort of balance. Maybe let's go a bit even more black and white there. Just go a bit further to the right, and you just have a sort of subtle color coming through. See how that works? And I really quite like that. So I'm just going to bring all these three layers together by clicking one and then holding down the shift key and clicking the bottom one. I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to say merge the visible, right? So I just want to see what it is that we've got. We didn't use that other layer. I can, if I want to, I can still overlay that, and maybe even when that one's selected, drop the occupancy down on that one to just try and maybe help that image just a little bit. Yeah, even that works quite well. So let's do the same again. I'll highlight the bottom one. I'm just going to merge visible. So we're back to a single layer, and to put it back into Lightroom, I would just go to File, Close, and I'll just say Save. Okay, so it will take it away from the ones that we've been working with. These are the other images that we've got. And if I go back into Lightroom briefly, you will see that we have the original image. There it is, and then we have this adapted image that we chose to do. And I think that's quite a nice look. Maybe whilst we're here, let's not get carried away, Jamie, but let's perhaps just give that a little bit of vibrance. Just a little bit of vibrance there, and maybe just bring that tone a little bit more to the right. And fantastic. I mean, I really do like that. So you're always being able to make, you know, fine adjustments and get where you want to be with different tonings and different levels of detail and contrast. So here we go, Tower Bridge, one of my favorite subjects. What can we do with Tower Bridge? Well, perhaps what we can do is we can have a look and see how much noise we've got in this image. So let's just zoom in a little bit and see where we are. You know, it's pretty good, to be fair. you probably can't really see it. There's not much detail, not much noise there at all, but we could run Dfine, okay, which is a noise reduction piece of software. I'm just going to open that here. It's going to take us into Dfine, and then what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. So let's zoom in quite close, and I'm just going to hold down the space bar to move over. So there's the before. Perhaps we can go in a bit closer still, to be honest. There we go. You can see the noise there, and there's the after when we're in the Dfine. So I can move that slider over again. You can see. Now the advantage of Dfine is it gives you a lot of control. Lightroom denoise is a very good filter that you can use within Lightroom, but it doesn't give you an awful lot of adjustment. You can just say more or less. With Dfine, what we're able to do is we're able to come in and look at specific ways of dealing with noise. In the automatic mode, you can see it does a pretty good job, but you can select manual, and then you can decide with the selection where you want to actually do your measurements. You can do that, and you can make changes. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that today. We'll stick with automatic, but automatic, to be fair, does do a very good job. But if you've got different levels of contrast and different levels of, say, highlights and shadows, you can do manual measurements on each of those different areas to compensate. So you can see we're getting a pretty good effect as it is already. We can change the contrast noise sliders. So if I reduce it, you can see the noise starts to come back, and if I increase it, we get rid of a lot more. So I'm just going to go with the automatic set in the center, and the same with the color noise. We can reduce that, and you can see more of that here down on the bridge. If I increase that, it's slightly different. So we'll just leave that in the center as well. And the good thing is when you are hovering over these areas, you can also see in the top area up here what the changes are happening. There is a local adjustments area in all of these applications in Nik, and you can choose different ways of applying a control point, and you can have them based on control lines. You can make polygon selections. You can just take an elliptical center, etc., etc. Won't go into those too much at the moment, but they're like masks, and they allow you to apply localized effects if you wanted to do that. Not necessarily in Dfine, but this is optional in all of the different apps. And then if it is a JPEG that you're working on, you can always just click this JPEG artifact reduction, and it will remove the JPEG effect that you can get, particularly in small detail. We get some blockiness, so you can switch that on. I don't need to do that here because well, let's do it. There's no harm. It will always help because it was a JPEG that we were working with. And then you also have a debound function. Some of the older cameras had a tendency, particularly if you push the shadows too hard, to develop banding, in the noise background. That effect can be removed by adding this. We don't need to do that. We don't have any here. But as you can see, we've got a pretty good effect there. So I can send it as a layer back into Photoshop as we did previously, but there's no need because I want this effect to take place. So I'm just going to hit apply, and then it's going to apply that, and it will go back in there. Now it still creates another layer, but it's not a layer sort of different to the original layer. It's with the applied effect on there, so you can do a before and after, as simple as that. So there's no need for me to keep the background layer now, so I've just deleted that, and we've got this defined noise reduction on this main image, and that works very well. So let's have a look at some of the other functions we have here. Color Efex is quite interesting. I'm going to go into Color Efex, and we're just going to open that up, and let's make sure we can see the whole image. There we go. So we've come into Color Efex. Now they're set up very much the same way that you see in Silver Efex. They're all very similar, and you can see that we're in the All Niks selection, and that gives us all these different presets, and there are so many presets across all these different applications. I was trying to work it out the other day. It's certainly well over 150 different presets that you can use. And then, of course, you can use combinations between all of those presets as well by using the layer function in Photoshop. So it's endless, really, what you can actually create. So let's have a look, see what Super Punch gives us. So Super Punch, clearly lots of contrast, very, very dramatic. Look at that. Wow. That actually is pretty good. Couple of dust devils there we'll have to deal with when we go back in. You can see them more pronounced when we're in there, but maybe we might think, well, that contrast is just a little bit too high. So we over here in the contrast sliders, we've got contrast only. We can reduce that. Yeah, we can bring it back or increase it so you can get really muddy look, you know. So let's just bring that back just a little bit. That works okay. And then we can just boost maybe those shadows just a little bit more as well. So it gives us quite a nice effect. You've got Pro Contrast mode down here as well. So these came from the filters that were applied to this preset. All right. You can go into the filters separately, as I showed you in Silver Efex, and make those changes. But here I'm just going to stick with, we went with Super Punch. We've got this correct color contrast slider, so we can alter that if we want to try. That gives us, it takes us more blue as we go over from left to right. So you can see that's bluey green and that's magenta and warm. And then you've got the correct contrast. You can also add even more contrast at a sort of really severe level. I mean, as I said earlier, you need to be a little bit careful with these controls. They're quite powerful. Let's pop that in the middle so you can see the difference between the two towers. Now, dramatic contrast is really quite interesting. I've had a bit of a play with this. Again, it can get quite interesting. But if I bring that up, rather than just adding contrast to the image and making it look that sort of muddier and deeper look, which sometimes can work very well, what it's actually doing, if I go to the left, it's actually opening up the contrast in the brighter area rather than the darker areas. So you can see that's the before, that's the after. And if I just bring that over to the left there, so you can see the whole thing, that's 100%, that's 0. But actually moving that somewhere around the middle there, I think about 30%, gives us really quite a nice look. And you can apply the Pro Contrast more in the shadows or more in the highlights. So you can say, well, let's have a little bit more in the shadows. Where do we sit with the highlights? Probably around about there, about 20%. And then, of course, all of that contrast, that Pro Contrast mode, we can have an occupancy. We can apply a little or a lot of it. So we can decide where we want to go with that. So there's the before, there's the after. Quite a nice effect, I must admit. So I can send that as a layer back to Photoshop. So we've now got this one back there. And like before, I can go through and I can make other changes. I can go through some of these different, let's see, that spring one's got quite a misty effect. That's quite interesting. And let's have a look here. We can the sunlight slider is one of the filters that's been illuminated here, so we can add more or less of that. Let's just bring that down slightly and just reduce the occupancy a little bit. Quite a misty look. I do like that. That looks quite nice. We don't have any foliage in this shot, so the foliage slider there gives you control over the colors. You can pick the different shades of green that you want to apply to, and then you can move this left or right, which will affect the overall image because obviously it's a color tint. So if you bring it to more to the left, you get that magenta, and if you move it more to the right, you get the green. So that's more sort of greeny yellow. This is more magenta over this side, and I reckon we can probably come down there quite low. Excellent. So I'm going to send that as a layer also to Photoshop, and that's over there now. And I'm going to come out of here now, click cancel. We're going to come out of here, and it's just going to process those images just like it did for Silver Efex. And it's just going to bring them in. There's one, and it's just adding the other one now. And then, of course, once it's added them, it doesn't apply them. You have to switch them on as you want them. So there's the spring one, and there's the high contrast. It's quite interesting, actually. So with the high contrast one that I did first, I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to select it. I'm going to go into occupancy, and we're just going to blend how much of that we want into the shot. I think probably just a little bit more. That's quite nice. And then with the spring shot here, we don't want, I want to apply this selectively. So I'm just going to apply a layer mask to this top layer here. So at the moment, everything's shown, but I want the opposite of that. So I'm just going to go up to invert, which is in properties. And if properties isn't showing, go to window and check the properties there, and it will appear for you. Click invert. So nothing from that top layer is being shown. All we've got is the two layers below, and that's what we're looking at. But what we can do is take a brush, B, or you can select it over here on the left. I'm going to go with not too much occupancy. Let's go with 40%, and the flow rate, keep that relatively low as well, as around 50%. We'll put the little airbrush symbol on. That means that it will build. If I hold it in one area, it'll keep building. So I want to bring some of that layer in there. So maybe we can put that around on the water, right? So I'm just going to paint that around here. Actually, it would be best if I was in white because it is black. So I just change the brush over to white. Here we go, and we'll try again. And we're just going to brush in lightly some white into that area. And what that's doing is it's allowing the layer from above to just come through and just make that water look a little bit more sort of milky, and perhaps a little bit in the sky as well. Just gonna add that into the sky a little bit as well, just to make it look a little bit softer. We did have that dust devil there. I'll deal with that now, and maybe just a little bit off the top of these, just a little bit there. I think that looks quite nice. I'm happy with that. So we've got our top layer, we've got our middle layer, which is also blended via an occupancy, and we've got our original layer, the Nik 8 Dfine layer. I'm just going to click on all three. I'm just going to right click and say flatten the image. So that's what we've got now. So happy with that. I'm just going to remove that little dust devil there. So I'm going to go to the remove tool. I'm going to make the remove tool slightly bigger than the little dust devil. Click on there, click check to remove it. If you've got remove after each stroke not checked, then you have to check it. If you have that as checked, it will automatically do that for you. So that's fine. I'm happy with that. And then we'll pop it back into Lightroom. File, close, and save. So it will come out of Photoshop. It will go back into Lightroom. And then there we are with our image. So this is before, and this is after. So we've just built up that contrast. Now, of course, you can do these things in Lightroom, but the Nik Collection comes at it from a different angle, gives you those pro contrast controls, gives you a number of different things, which takes you quite often on a slightly different journey when you come to process your images. And I find it quite interesting that you can just play with different concepts and different ideas, and they're applied differently, so you get a different effect. So before and after, it is only subtle, but I do quite like that, and I'm going to say I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to give that a 3 score, as I did with that one. Right. So let's try something else. So let's go back over into Photoshop where we've got these two last images. So this is the Serena and Lily in Westport, Connecticut shop. There's a video on all of these images, by the way. You can go back into my videos and have a look to see how I did these images originally. So let's look at this from an analog perspective. Let's maybe try to apply a little bit of a film effect to this. So we've got the Analog Efex Nik Collection here. I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to open that, and it's going to take us into that particular option. Now there's an awful lot of things in here. I'm just going to show you a couple of the things using the same approach we've used before. We go into the Nik Collection, we can open up the presets, and we can go through and pick a preset that we want to work with. Black and white 9, that looks quite crazy. So there we go, there's our before and after. So just straight in there with a black and white, but now it's more of a film type effect, and we can pick film strips, we can change the levels of grain, we can change the tonal balance, we can add or apply vignettes. We can also put dirt and scratches on the image to make it look a little bit older. So I can just click on different effects there, which will give us a slightly different look. And of course, you can always make it stronger. So if I make it stronger, there we go. You can add in, you know, these sort of background effects, which can either look more or better. But I must admit, sometimes just adding in, and that is, I've got the strength turned right up. I mean, I can turn that right down, and we can just have a little bit of an effect. But having these sort of background effects, which I used to do in Photoshop manually, and I'd import a texture and then apply that texture with occupancy. This does it for you automatically, and just by using the slider, you can apply more or less. Going back down here to the film type, you know, we've got black and white tones. You've got lots of different tones and effects that you can put in there. And we can also reduce the strength. If we don't want it to be quite so strong, we can bring that back a little bit, something like that. And then we also have a good hardness slider, which will give you more of the structure, more of the detail, and you can have it softer on this end or a little bit harder on this end. That works quite well. At the moment in the film strip, we have sort of edge of a film strip, and you can see it up here in the top edge, and you can make that bigger or smaller, so it gives that sort of older sort of film effect. It's not something I use too much, and in this case I'm just going to remove it there. You can just unclick it if you don't want it as well. And then you have your curves. You can apply your own curve here, and you can actually just click the vary, and it will go through some different levels and stages for you automatically. And then you can also affect all of the red, green, blue, and the overall by just moving the line itself. So I can make my own adjustments there if I want to. So just make that a little bit darker. There we go. So I'm sort of just touching on it really, but again, in filters, you've got all the different areas that you can put in. There are a huge amount of things that you can do. You can apply motion blurs and zoom and rotation blurs. You can add bokeh to shots, lens distortion, etc., etc. You can even put in like a photo plate and create like a photo plate effect. So it's like a wet plate from back in the good old days. So I could apply that, and you'll get this sort of really sort of grainy look with the different tones, because the wet plate had different thicknesses of the chemicals on the surface, so it would render the image in different levels. You can really just go to town and add in almost anything you want to, and vary, of course, the strength on all of that as well. So just making little backgrounds. As I say, there is so much in here that you can play around with, but using the presets as your starting point, you can pick a starting point, and as you can see here, there are so many. I give it to Nik Collection DxO for doing this work. It really is very, very, very impressive what you can do and how you can apply it. But I'm not going to use that photo plate. I'm just going to send that as a layer back to Photoshop. As we've done previously, I'm going to come out of this module here, and I've got myself, it's just going to process that image there. So that was the original image, and let's just move that over, and here's the new image. So again, we could do what we did before, which is we could select that top image, go to occupancy, and bring that value down so that we've got a mix between the original shot, which is here, and then the new shot with that applied almost black and white. Let's go a little bit more on the occupancy to give it more of a sort of black and white look. Where do we sit with this? Can we have a little bit of color tone in there? Oh, I thought maybe 30%, somewhere around there works quite well. And that image looks pretty good. So we're just going to highlight both images. We're just going to go to flatten the image into a single image, and then we're going to do what we did before: file, close, and save, and that's going to pop it back into Lightroom. So there's the original image, and there's our adjusted image. Just playing around with those tones and colors works Very well. Now let's do a full-blown black and white with this last one. Let's go back into Photoshop where we've got Buckingham Palace, and I'm going to go back into Silver Efex, and I'm going to open that Silver Efex. And what we're going to do is going to jump straight into the overall presets. I'm going to go down. What should we do? I think full dynamic could work quite well. Yeah, that does work quite well. Let's just try the full dynamic harsh. Too much. No, smooth is what we want. And now we can make, I'm just going to move that over to the left. Now we can make the adjustments that we want to. So go to filters. Let's add in the toning. Let's add in the clear view and the selective tones. Maybe put a little bit of a vignette effect in as well, ready to do that. I think that will work for us. So everything that we've just selected has now been added on the right hand side here. So let's pick a small vignette so we can have them darker or stronger. So let's go with 1, and we can vary the size of that vignette. You can see by moving the slider there, we can just have a little bit or a lot, and we can also make it more rectangular or more circular with the shape circle at the moment, and make it strong so you can see it. We can make it more rectangular, which means it's sort of coming round like so, or we can make it more circled so it comes into the center. That's the amount, sorry, I moved there. So let's put that back in the middle. Let's just increase the amount into the dark, and then you can see the rectangle or the circle. That gives you the sort of 2 different effects that we've got there. So not going to apply quite so much, just a little bit there. That works. Toning, well, I do love selenium, so I'm going to grab the selenium again, and you can vary the strength of that toning by moving this over, so you can have more blue or less of an effect. So just a little tiny bit of selenium there works well. You can also add more of the silver toning in as well to the overall effect, which I find is a really useful slider. Gets where you want to go. We talked about the paper hue last time, so I'm not going to do that here. We're going to make some adjustments to the structure. So there's so much detail going on here. We can add in some a little bit more fine structure there, and a little bit overall structure. A little bit more structure in the high tones and mid-tones, and a little bit in the shadow. Back that shadow off too much. There we go. It's a bit much now. Just going to reduce that just a little bit. That's good. And then we'll go up to the basic adjustments. Going to make the whole scene brighter. Going to add in a little bit of dynamic brightness just to get that working well. And do I need to open the shadows up anymore? I don't think I do, actually. I might even bring down the highlight adjustments slightly. That works well. We don't want to overdo the structure. By moving those brightness adjustments there, it did bring up the structure a little bit more. So I'm just going to back out the overall structure off just a little bit, down to 5%, and I'm just going to bring that fine structure down a little bit as well. Don't want too much. So there's the before, there's the after. Really makes it pop as a black and white. The selective tones here. Maybe just bring down the highlights just a little bit. I'm happy with that. So gives us a really sort of powerful black and white that we can use. Is there anything else I want to do there? No, I'm sort of think I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to apply that inside Photoshop. As you remember, it'll apply that to the image. It will make a new layer, which is done, and there we go, before and after. Fantastic black and white. I don't need the background anymore because this is the one I'm going to go with. So I'm just going to say delete that layer. I'm then going to go to File, Close, and Save. So we've got nothing left in Photoshop now. So we'll go back over into Lightroom. So we've got our before and we've got our after. So I have to say, I'm pretty happy with those changes. Let's just have a look at them. So I gave them all, I gave them all a 3, so we'll just go to 3 stars. That one's got 4 stars for the minute, so I'll make that 2. So these are the images that we ended up with. So let's go and have a look through them. So there was our sort of toned away shot of Stratford upon Avon, and there was our more contrasty look at Tower Bridge. And then there was that sort of trying to get that analog effect, an older style picture on the Serena and Lily shop in Connecticut, and of course fantastic Buckingham Palace in black and white. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember that there is a 20% discount for Father's Day that's rolling for the next 4 or 5 days. If you missed that, so we are in middle of June 2025. If you missed that, there is also, I've put down below another link for 15% off, which will run continuously, I think, till the end of the year. So if you want to purchase Nik Collection, have a play with it yourself. 20% is a pretty good discount to get started with, and I really enjoyed using this software. I've always been a Silver Efex fan, to be honest, and I've got to thank DxO for giving me the opportunity to play with the new Nik Collection 8. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, I'd love you to click like, and if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and join me on my ever running adventure here on YouTube. I'm still having a great time, and if you do have any comments or questions, please put them down below. I do my best to answer all of them. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.